The small gray courtroom was colder than usual that morning, like the walls themselves were in harmony with the storm brewing inside. Rain lashed the high windows, erasing jagged patterns of water on the glass, sending smeared shadows on the polished floor. People in the gallery flickered, whispering to each other in whispering voices, looking towards the front with nervousness. At the defendant's table sat Staff Sergeant Calvin Drake, a 39-year-old twice-combat-experienced veteran of Afghanistan. His former broad shoulders had changed a bit in the years, and his skin no longer had its tan-hardened appearance. A big leather splint hung around his left leg, and a pair of crutches leaned against him. His face bore the weathered lines of a man who had lived more than any one lifetime could possibly offer. But he was standing up straight, serene. He wore his old dressing uniform, not new or clean, but plainly kept with pride. He'd earned every thread, and that uniform was an unspoken reminder of what he once was, and remains, on the inside. But Calvin wasn't there for violence or robbery or fraud. He wasn't some kind of felon. He was in court because he had twice failed to show up for municipal court. The reason, a list of unpaid parking tickets that piled up while he fought to get around a broken public transportation system. Ills that were right for people who had mobility impairment. Court system, like with so many systems, did not pay much attention to his limp, had become glaringly obvious. Presiding over the case was Judge Miriam Fallon, a woman judge renowned for her no-nonsense, no-excuses approach to the law. Hard-eyed and clinical in her manner, she had a reputation for being businesslike and a ruthless demand for compliance with her. A failure to show in court was black and white. At the prosecution table, Assistant City Attorney Ross Campbell struggled to contain his boredom. For him, Calvin's case was a slam dunk. Open and shut, another file too. You're penalizing him for not standing from the jury box. A young woman rose. Then another and another, almost half the jurors rose to their feet. The Baloff returned to Calvin's side. Well, do this in your manner, Sergeant. By Natalie, he helped Calvin sit up. His breathing was labored, but stronger. The courtroom was no longer Fallon's. It was Calvin's now. Fallon, pale and shaken, looked around. She had lost the room, and more than the room, the crowd began a low, thunderous chant. Honor him, honor him, honor him, Fallon. Looked to Campbell, but he was already backing away, shame etched on his face. Calvin sat on the floor, surrounded by people who saw him more as a hero than broken. Fallon stood finally, her voice shaking. For once, unflappable Mr. Drake, she said, stepping down from the bench. This court owes you an apology. The gallery fell silent again. I instructed you to stand without knowing what you've already been through. I let you down. I let everyone in this room get its sacrifice. She dragged herself up. All charges against Staff Sergeant Calvin Drake are dismissed with prejudice. His record will reflect nothing but the honor he's earned. Applause rippled through the room like a wave. Then Fallon stepped forward, coming to a stop in front of Calvin without hesitation. She went down on one knee and bent her head. I am sorry, she said softly. And I thank you. Gasps echoed. Calvin, still shaking, reached out and laid his hand on her shoulder. A strong, quiet act of forgiveness. Sunlight filtered through the windows. The storm had passed. Outside, the crowd had grown. Veterans in uniform, civilians waving flags, homemade placards. Honor our heroes. Calvin Drake. American strength. When Calvin rolled up into his wheelchair, silence swept the street, then applause. Steady, reverent, raw, a reporter.